This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I am your host, Mark. And this episode of Performance Anxiety Side Projects is almost a religious experience. Welcome Morgan Geer of Drunken Prayer and Matt Patton of Drive-By Truckers. Today, we're talking about gospel music. Morgan and Matt talk about the gospel music that made the first impact on them, and they give some great recommendations on where to start your own journey. Matt and Morgan each give their accounts of how they met. Matt talks about finding small radio stations that play gospel music all over the country while touring. Morgan has released a new Drunken Prayer album called Thy Burdens, and it's deeply rooted in country gospel music. But it has that Drunken Prayer spin on it. Matt plays bass and spearheaded the entire project. And to make the album even more authentic, part of it was even recorded in a church. Check out Drunken Prayer's new album, Thy Burdens, on Bandcamp and streaming. Follow Morgan on socials at Drunken Prayer. Matt can be found on the road with Drive-By Truckers or in his Water Valley, Mississippi studio, Dial Back Sound. And make sure you keep an eye on their upcoming releases. Follow us at Performance ANX on socials, get merch at performanceanx.threadless.com, or just send some money to ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. We'll just buy coffee with it. Now let's have a come to Jesus moment with Morgan Geer and Matt Patton on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network. Morgan, you've got a wild, awesome new album out. And it has some really deep gospel connections. And so I know we were kind of talking about it a little bit, and I don't know a whole hell of a lot about, I guess, wow, that's probably the wrong phrasing to use for this. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about gospel music. So I wanted to get your idea of it because your album doesn't exactly sound like traditional gospel music. It definitely sounds like a Drunken Prayer take on gospel music, which I think is amazing. But was gospel something that you grew up with? Was it something that you heard a lot growing up?
For me, I grew up with it in a way. There's lots of ways to grow up with things, and when we follow up with Matt, he'll give you his take. Mine was ubiquitous, but I grew up in a musical family where we listened to lots of things, gospel being one of them. So it was part of the patchwork of growing up, and it was like the biggest patch. And so I saw it in context with, I was lucky enough to grow up with a mom who had really good taste in music, and so it's like I'm listening to old gospel music, like obviously like Closer Walk with Thee, but with like Highway 61 Revisited. I hear like Dylan's From a Buick 6 and Long Ago Far Away, or like Ezekiel's The Wheel, and that like there's a blurring of genres just on a kind of aesthetic level. So I grew up with it, but it wasn't drilled into my head as a lesson necessarily. You know what I mean? Like a musical lesson. It was kind of. A lot of it, like the songs on this, are kind of like, for me, no-brainers. If you're going to take them as lessons, be nice to each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, Matt, what about you? Was gospel something that you got familiar with as a kid?
Very much so, yeah. Probably my very first recollection of ever hearing or seeing any live music was in church. I was very fascinated by people playing in the church, and the music there, when maybe some of the stuff on the record doesn't sound very much like, gospel music that you're familiar with, but, it's, some of it is very much like, what people in my church would have attempted to do or sound like. I grew up in Pentecostal church, so it was pretty spirited, loud, lively performances of these songs.
Maybe that's where it's a completely different point of view for me, because I grew up in the Northeast, Catholic, everything was church was quiet, and so if there was singing, it was, the liturgical singing was more, and this is after, in the 70s and 80s, really, it was all the post-Vatican II stuff where it was all hippies singing, and it just sounded real folky. And
it was kind of like that Jesus people music.
Yeah, and I didn't like that. Now, I mean, you give me some Gregorian chant, I'm in. But the sing-songy, a lot of it sounded like it belonged on Sesame Street. And I was just like, I'm too old for this. I'm listening to Megadeth. Why do I want to? I don't want to hear this.
I actually like some of that stuff, but it's a few years down the way, like when everything the sort of Jesus people stuff gave way to more what they call contemporary Christian or contemporary praise and worship music, which is kind of where I checked out,
Yeah. It's funny because I grew up, two of my mom's uncles and one of her aunts were religious. We had two who were priests and one was a nun. And so like every family gathering, there'd be either like a mass or a special blessing before a meal. And my great aunt she'd bring some of the other sisters with her, and they'd bust out the guitars, and I'm like, man, this is not what I'm into. So and I never, so when I would hear gospel music, I'm like, I automatically have that bias, like, oh man, I don't want to hear that. I mean, I get
what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I think in the South, at least my experience was like, everybody's family was really that way, with busting out the guitars and the piano maybe, and
yeah.
They would play bluegrass and country and gospel, and that's just how it was. I didn't really have an opinion about it. It's just like what our families did.
Now that's a good point. Yeah, you don't really get the chance to do anything because that is what happens. And my family was like the exact opposite of Morgan's, where I love music. I play guitar badly, but I love music. I mean, I've got. Here, I'll show you real quick. There's my wall of CDs. And then I've got my guitars and my amp and some more CDs over there. Some CDs right there. Some over here. So I love music, but I don't play it very well. Nobody in my family played music. And so when I was younger, church music was just something that happened at church, and I really didn't want to have anything to do with it during the week. And so maybe that's part of my bias as well. So
context is everything.
You are right.
Because like, just getting back to your original question, I grew up in the church in Mobile, Alabama, the Irish Catholic scene and everything. The scene, the music is like you mentioned. Right, I liked it when like the early stuff.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned a Gregorian chant, and I was in choir my entire life, and I learned to really, really love that stuff. Like Ezekiel saw the wheel on that. It's like I didn't get that from anybody but my choir teacher. I didn't know until later that John Cash had ever or anything. It's just that I love that. I love those really old English drony hymns. I've got a song called Hey Ho, Buddy Ho, which is in a round. It never changes chords, and it sounds as much like Tenorowin as it does anything from like the 1100s. And if you kind of let yourself go there or get away from the idea of genres and just really do see it as kind of like this weird gumbo, it all kind of, like, to me it ends up like at North Mississippi drum and fife music, to where it's like all of that kind of like works together. In my mind, I mean, it's like maybe I'm insane.
I think really too is like with my church growing up, it was pretty fire and brimstone, and it's like church was terrifying, 80% of the time, and like really, really, really terrifying to a young child. So it's like the music was the time where they were not talking about all the terrifying stuff.
Oh, wow.
So that was a real cool,
That, well, then again, that's a point I never considered.
I hadn't thought about that.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. And again, for me, my exposure really to gospel music was like infomercials or those Saturday morning evangelical shows that would come on right before Looney Tunes. And so I'd be sitting there waiting for my cartoons, and some super slick pastor would come on with a wife who looks like Tammy Wynette. And I'd just be like, this this isn't what my church looks like at all. This is very strange. And so, being a little kid, I want to get past that. And I want to watch, Bugs Bunny hit Daffy Duck on the head with a frying pan. So again, that's why I wanted to do this, because I really have enjoyed Morgan's album. I think it's a really awesome spin on what I am familiar with as far as gospel music is concerned. And there may be other artists out there who've tried something along these lines. And so that, I guess maybe that's kind of my next question is, where are your influences as far as gospel? Are there people that you listen to on a regular basis, people that made an impact on you in growing up and that stuck with you? And Matt, let's start with you. And if not, no is a good answer too.
I guess number one, it's like there was a woman, there still is a woman that plays piano every Sunday at the church I grew up in, and her name was Tammy Wood. Tammy Wood is her name. So when I first started playing bass, she would play piano, and I didn't have any idea about what to do. So she was just like, you listen to kind of what my left hand is doing, and you try to do that, I don't think that we're sitting here having this conversation at all together without Tammy.
Oh, man, that is awesome.
Right. And then, it's I guess it would sort of be easy to say that, like, when you hear someone like Jerry Lee Lewis or Little Richard or someone like that playing gospel, it's sort of some of where this is coming from, that sort of spirit, or Johnny Cash, or, when secular artists would sort of pay homage to their roots in gospel, some stuff like this comes out.
Morgan, what about you? Is there anybody that sticks out as that this guy was an influence in my sound or anything like that?
Well, if it's not too crass, I've got some Tammy Wood on my Patreon page that's accessible. He's right. It's absolutely phenomenal. I won't talk too much about it because it's not really, you can't hear it anywhere else, but it's this off the cuff that you only really find maybe some like Sun Records. It was like really almost dissonant, really melodical music, but played with passion. Otherwise, as far as things you can like find, I've got a version of "Ain't No Grave" that I got from Brother Claude Eli. I'm not sure that he just seems like he's a maniac when he's playing, And it's just like they really do like kind of warriors for good. Who knows where their actual hearts are at or what their motivations are. But he's kind of a soldier of the cross. I've been liking this woman, Martha Carson, that. She sounds a lot like Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and I would put them in pretty close, not competition, but like in the same conversation, like you would say Elvis and Howlin' Wolf, like two people doing the same thing from different sides of the track that you can. They're doing the same thing, and it's like the sound is they're both going to the same place and coming from the same place. Great gospel appears in crazy places. Link Ray, that Fire and Brimstone song, you can find on the country funk compilations and then the Link Ray records.
Oh, wow.
Link Ray had a series of records in the early 70s that people, have kind of started to kind of dig up lately. It was...
Really?
It was markedly different than the late 50s, early 60s stuff where he's basically just doing like, rockabilly and surf and instrumental stuff, like this stuff had like, lyrics and singing, it was more country, folk rock, country rock, in that vein.
It gets to what Matt was saying earlier about how as passionate as Jerry Lee Lewis or Loretta Lynn or Little Richard are, there's even something else once they start doing gospel, because it's not about they're having a one-on-one conversation. It's unironic. They're not putting on a gospel hat. It's kind of like they're taking off a secular one, and they're having a conversation that they will not lie. They cannot. It's you believe them 100%. And so like the Link Ray stuff, hell, the Dylan's Saved record. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite ones he ever did. If you can get over yourself or the flag waving that you hear about gospel music or whatever your preconceptions are, just as music, it's incredible.
Yeah, and the Muscle Shoals, Dylan record, Slow Train Coming, is probably the first Dylan record I ever really remember hearing and knowing that I was listening to Bob Dylan. And then this Link Ray stuff that we're talking about, I can't tell you how many times it gets referenced in the studio, like nonstop. Really? Not only just for this record, but like for probably half the records we make there.
Wow. I've got to check that out. That's because I love Link Ray, and I haven't dived too deep into him, and this sounds really interesting. I'm going to have to look this up.
Yeah.
Fire and Brimstone almost made it to the record. We just kind of ran out of time.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was the next one.
For me, the big thing, and to me, it didn't come across as gospel, was I got really into the blues when I was in my teens, and like old traditional blues. Like I would buy these compilations with a whole bunch of different people on it, and one I got was called the slide guitar, Bottles, Knives, and Steel, and it had like Sister O.M. Terrell doing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, which I loved, and it didn't really register that it was a gospel kind of a song because she's doing it in a blues manner,
Swing low, chariot, swing low. Swing low, chariot, swing low. Swing low, chariot, swing low. Well, low, 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 lordy, low, low. Swing low, chariot, I said swing.
Check out B.B. King Sings Spirituals.
Okay.
It's from it sounds like mid-early 60s. And it's straight up B.B. King, but with that great 60s production. And it's all 100% Jesus Gave Me Water, Our Lord, Working on a Building, Precious Lord, Old Time Religion. It's one after the next. And it's just straight up, it's like hard Memphis blues.
It's interesting, like during the time of the 60s and, secular artists in the blues and popular music and all that, it's like they sort of instinctively reach back to gospel music for civil rights and social justice messages,
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. So,
which side are you on?
Yeah. And so the other one that really stood out for me on that collection, just because I think it's an amazing song. If you guys haven't heard it, you need to check it out. Is Blind Willie Johnson's "God Don't Ever Change."
As God, I don't never change. He's God, always will be God. God in the middle of the ocean, God in the middle of the sea. By the help of
that is just insane. That's one of those songs that has that. The first time I heard it sticks in my brain, and it's like one of those songs that's like always somewhere in the back of my head. So
I guess, for me, really, like, when I hear gospel music, it was a respite from all the terror that was going around in my young life. And it's sort of a social justice thing for me as well,
Okay.
Because I got really into sort of like the Vietnam era rock music in my childhood as well, and in my early teens. And that gospel sort of message, or Pete Seeger doing a song, Bob Dylan doing a song, was always there, so it's always kind of been something that's reliable to kind of, bring peace to my mind or whatever,
Okay, so it's a touchstone for you to settle yourself.
Right. Yeah, and I can put gospel music in my earbuds and walk through the gnarliest cityscape or whatever, and I'm cool about it.
That's awesome. So when I saw you guys, when I saw Drive-By Truckers in DC last time you guys came around, you must have been listening to gospel music because shit was pretty crazy back then. So, by the way, it was an awesome show. Killer show.
Shadow of the Valley of Death.
Yeah. Is there a favorite song that you have? And for Morgan, did you include that song on your album? Is there one you go back to constantly?
A favorite gospel song?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be contextual, like as the day goes. Honestly, I've just seen The Rock of Ages by Ralph Stanley with Keith Whitley singing lead vocals.
Oh, wow.
It does not get any better than that.
And I thought I heard her say, I've just seen the Rock of Ages, Jacob's ladder hanging down. I've just crossed the river of Jordan. Now, my son, I'm homeward bound.
In fact, that entire album is probably my favorite gospel song. It's the kind of that makes you want to just fight. Not necessarily like anyone in particular, but just like it's motivating because like when they sing Over in the Glory Land, and it's like I'm getting goosebumps right now just hearing it. It's just tough. It's tough as hell. It's why I like rock and roll. It's why I like punk rock. It's like this is it.
Man.
Yeah, I think it would probably be Andre Crouch's Take Me Back for me. Yeah, I remember like I hadn't heard that song really in a long, long time. And I guess, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was driving somewhere. And I used to do this thing where I would search AM radio a lot, especially on Sundays, to kind of try to find, like old backwoods churches that might broadcast, It was kind of a hobby of mine if I was on a long drive to see what was playing on AM wherever I was. But I heard that song, and kind of let it play. And it just got to the moment to where I had to pull over, It just kind of overcame me.
Wow.
I just kind of wasn't prepared for it.
Oh, man. That's amazing. Oh,
yeah.
So 2 things about that. I love that was kind of a hobby for you because I would do that a little when I lived in Alabama. I would do that. I lived down in southeast Alabama around Enterprise, little west of Dothan. So I lived right off. Right. I lived right off the gates of Fort Rucker. So there was a little station in Ozark, WOAB, that would just play just a variety of stuff, but it was all really old stuff, and you're hearing it on AM, so you're hearing it like it was broadcast when it was new, and it just it sounded really special. So I can understand that draw too.
You don't hear a lot on AM these days, but
we got a good one here, like right behind the house.
I wasn't really just only looking for gospel music or whatever. I was just looking, to hear whatever was being beamed out there,
It's usually 8 AM coast to coast.
Which I love that. I love that.
Driving through East Texas in the middle of the night, listening
to
George
my gosh.
North.
There you go. Oh, man. I forgot. Who's the host of that now? Is it Chuck Norris? George Norrie. I was thinking Chuck. I'm like, no, that's Chuck Norris.
I think Chuck Norris is
Coast to Coast with Chuck Norris. That's a whole different show.
I'm listening to that.
Hell yeah.
Or else.
Yeah. All right. So, Morgan, I've known you for a few years now. And it's funny because when you told me about this album, I never really thought of you as a religious person, except for maybe the Alabama football. So,
RPR.
So when you said you were doing this, I was just like, okay, this is This is different. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, how long have you been wanting to do this? Is this something you've always wanted to do, or was this just, I don't want to say spur of the moment thing, but maybe a recent thing you wanted to do?
No, I would say I'm not religious at all. I mean, if I lean to anything, to Alan Watt 24/7, I'm probably closer to being a Buddhist than anything, which sounds pretentious to even say. But I'm extremely spiritual, which also sounds like an Asheville thing. Yeah, but for me, it's not a public thing. It's incredibly private.
Yeah.
But also it's private in the context that it involves all of us at the same time. This is my experience on Earth that we are all sharing and trying to understand and experience life to its fullest in the context of being part of a much greater system, for any lack of the word. It's like I'm both the most important and least consequential thing in the world, as we all are. And I put gospel music in. It's like looking at my experience here under a microscope, to where it's like I'm there with my ancestors, my great grandparents, the grandchildren I'll never meet. It's kind of like, it's simple, like a double helix looks, but incredibly complicated at the same time. And gospel music to me is the center of gravity for what I do, which is play music. It's the only thing I'm good at. And so it's an easy way of explaining and trying to understand what I'm doing here in the first place.
Okay. Is this a long-term project? Had you been wanting to do this for a long time, or was it just like, now is the time, let's do it?
Kind of a little both.
Okay.
It's been serendipitous, it's like Matt and I meeting and everything. But it's like, if you go back and listen to my records, there's been a hint at this all the time. It's not like it's been, if I stand back and take the 60,000 foot view, it looks like it's been leading to this the whole time, because I put a gospel song on almost every record I ever do or have ever done. And it's like, and at the end, what I'm going to do is blink. So if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, it's like, that kind of makes sense, But it definitely was a conscious decision on a more like basic and simple level. Yeah, it's something I've always wanted to make this record. I love this music, but I've also let my ambition in the music industry kind of get in the way. I was like, I can't do this. I've got to write Sgt. Pepper or something. You know what I mean? I've got to get better. I've got to be a better songwriter, a better arranger, a better recorder, both for my personal ambition and my professional ambition. And this has nothing to do with ambition, not on that level anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, really, it's like, I'm not a religious person either. I was indoctrinated into it, over the course of 25 years. So, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about my beliefs, because they're kind of terrifying to confront and think about. One day I think I would like to have some beliefs that are organic and come from me and are really me, but it's kind of hard to know. But, I do love gospel music. I think it's the primer for, most all of American music. It's definitely like, the country and the rock and roll and the punk rock and the blues and stuff like that I would come to be a part of playing. I learned how to do playing gospel music.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Before I met Morgan, I really wanted to do a gospel record kind of in this style that was maybe garage rock or sort of a take on it. And I pitched it to someone, who had become a believer, and they didn't feel like that was quite right for them to do.
Oh, okay.
And then I pitched to someone who was probably, just as busy or busier than I was at the time, and it just didn't work out, And then when I saw Morgan perform, I didn't really have a whole lot to go on. other than a song or two, and then when he went on that night, it just hit me that he was already doing it.
Oh, cool.
And, it's just like, for me, really, it was kind of a no-brainer to ask him to get involved in something like that. And, as far as who I am and everything and what people know about me and expect from me, it's like, if they're confused by my making a gospel record with anyone, then good,
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's just a side that I have, and when people see all of them, then there's nothing else for me to do. So,
so
if you're confused about it and didn't know that, good.
Yeah, exactly. There's I mean, it sounds like gospel is and will continue to be a very important part of your life. And like you said, you're hoping to continue to grow in that way, and you've already got that basis in gospel. It sounds like gospel is going to be what helps you figure things out on your own. How did you guys meet and start working on this album together? I don't know who wants to jump in on it. Either one of you. I'm just asking that one out into the ether. Yeah,
I feel like I've covered that, and so I would like to hear Morgan's side of the story.
Okay. So it was just after COVID. For one reason or another, I have no idea. There was not a whole lot of people at the local 506 in Chapel Hill that night, and I play there all the time. And it was just like, do we want to pair with this band from Birmingham, the Williamson Brothers? Like, yeah, they're fantastic. So we played with them. There's hardly anybody there. They're great guys and everything. We played, and we had a musical kind of rapport and camaraderie. Honestly, it was probably the cake if we want to get down to the real nitty gritty here. But there was this like simpatico, and like after the show, we just got to talking, and there was no reason really for us to be staying there. And then, an hour and a half, 2 hours later, we're still just hanging out and just talking. And from one thing led to another, and it got to a gospel music. And it was just like, wouldn't that be cool to make a record like that? And I was like, hell yeah, it'd be cool to make a record. Like, it's kind of saying just like the stars kind of aligned. And it wasn't mundane. Like, people look back on it just like, this wild crossroads when I, right. My best friend or my wife or something. It's like I never would have known. It's like, no, I kind of knew, and my wife kind of said the same thing. She's just like, something happened. You know what I mean? You kind of feel just like, it's like when just kind of like these two particles collide at warp speed. It's kind of like, oh great. It's like I at the very least met somebody I can talk to, which if you can do that with one person in your life is great. It was an immediate simpatico. It's like, I'm not the same. Wow. After this, not to put too much gravitas on it, but we've all had those little crossroads. It's just like, this is like something just happened today. That's great. I should mark that down, and mark it down. We did,
and you marked it with an entire album.
Right.
So there is this beautiful like rawness to the album, and what it reminds me of is, Matt, exactly what you're talking about. These little local AM broadcasts where a band will come in and they'll play some gospel music, and it just gets broadcast locally. And I almost hate to bring this into it, but Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Or Robert Duvall's The Apostle, where they're going to a little tiny radio station, a little tiny booth, and play something, and it goes out over the air, but it's definitely got a raw feel to it. That's what this album makes me feel like. Like I'm there in that little studio, or that little radio booth, listening to you play. It's an incredible atmosphere in the album. Yeah,
when you asked earlier about influences and things, it's like, I hear what you're saying, and a lot of the influence on my part, really, and probably Morgan's too, is like, if you ever run into like a batch of gospel 45s at a thrift store or a flea market or even a record store, those artists are multitudes. Like you could list them all day long and still not list all of them. So I didn't really get into all that, but like, that's sort of like the feel that I'm trying to bring with my bass on that record. comes very much from just like, those little recording sessions on those tiny little labels. They've kind of scraped together all their money for a couple of hours in this place, and they're just kind of going for it.
Yeah.
They're not really playing patterns. They're just going to kind of bring it until their time runs out.
That's exactly it.
That's a great way of it.
Yeah. So it's like, I have boxes full of those 45s,
Oh man, that's awesome.
Pull out and listen to. And
well, if I could just say, if anyone's interested in listening to that kind of stuff, Mississippi Records in Portland, Oregon is putting out some decent compilations of a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's a good comp. There's a good intro comp. You should be able to find it on anything that's streaming. The Good God comps are pretty great places to start, and you can kind of research some of the labels and kind of retro engineer a debilitating 45 habit. My 45 habit was worse than any drug habit at one point.
I know the feeling. You see my wall of CDs. I know the feeling.
That kind of brings up a weird phenomenon I've noticed, and we didn't make this record in a voicely, but gospel is weirdly hip right now. It seems like maybe it's my bubble, but there are gospel compilations where I never even would have thought of that in my 20s or something. Where there's a kind of a newborn respect. Robert Randolph a few years ago kind of was like, no, this is not just okay. It's super cool.
Yeah.
It's a good time to and I hope we're not riding a wave, and we're also riding a wave of this stuff. We're not meaning to, but there seems to be something in the public kind of zeitgeist of it's like lower your fists a little bit, and maybe listen to this. I was listening to Richards's podcast, Alabama Astronaut, and he talks because there's a lot of snake handling stuff going on in there, and he brought up why there's not a lot of this in the Lomax canon, and he came to the conclusion, it's like, well, a lot of people just didn't like these people, or they were afraid of them, and so I was like, I'm not going to go record this. But you go back and listen to, there's a documentary, it's the Jolo Serpent Handlers from the 70s or 60s. The music in there is incredible. It's like, snake handling, but once you get over that, the music is pretty great. It's
the music is like wild, like hillbilly music,
and soul music too.
Like the guitar playing is like stream of consciousness, like jam almost. Like
really?
It's incredible.
It's crude and just
perfect.
I mean, it's like punk almost. It's just
oh man,
it's insane.
I have to check this out now.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing you could imagine dancing with some poisonous steaks to, and
literally,
Oh man!
Whenever anybody tries to witness to me these days, I'm just like, why don't you handle some snakes and I'll believe you,
Come and talk to me.
Like, if you want to drink some poison and handle some snakes, I believe you.
There you go. Now I know you're committed.
There's Jolo's Serpent Handlers, another one called the Holy Ghost People, there's tons of footage in there. We used some of the footage from Holy Ghost People in the video for I've Just Seen the Rock of Ages. It's just the music in there is so good. Yeah, check it out.
Oh, I definitely will. But let's talk about your music now, because what I like. Let's talk about your music. He gets up and walks away. What the hell?
I had to sneeze. I'm coming down off of post tour. I got the post tour flu.
Oh man,
crud.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's fine. I feel great.
So this album is awesome because it sounds like what it is. Drunken Prayer doing gospel music. There's a rawness to it. There's that like definitely the gospel part of it, but there's also that rockabilly country raw feel that you put into your music. And like Just a Closer Walk with Thee is one of my favorites on that album.
I'll be satisfied as
think you described it this way. It's cosmic gospel. And I think that's a absolutely spot on definition of what's going on this album. And I love your version of Rock of Ages. I mean, that is spot on Morgan Geer. You're playing, I mean, it is, if I would pick a song to define you, that could be it. That version of Rock of Ages. Else is playing on this album with you? So I know, Matt, you're on bass, and I know, Morgan, you're guitar and singing, and I know there's fiddles, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Who else is on there with you?
Primarily, there's an engineer that used to work at the studio, Bronson too, that played drums, and played drums on a lot of records that we made at Dialback, at that time, who also grew up in the Pentecostal church,
Oh, okay.
So I think that's kind of what adds to the swing of the album.
Okay.
It's exactly what adds to the swing of the album is having a rhythm section that grew up playing that kind of thing,
Makes sense.
And then there's a piano player in Oxford that I like to call for stuff like this. A lot of country records that I'd call him for, Americana records, that I need like sort of a gospel or a honky tonk feel for. His name is Eric Carlton.
And there's a fiddle on there too. Who's
that's
that?
Jason Krekel from Firecracker Jazz, and he might have played Zipper Jimbo Mathis a little bit. He lives here in Asheville. I've played with him on a few songs. On a few records. My idea I had this idea even before I met Matt about mixing my two kind of like main roots, is which Southern Appalachian music and Deep South music, Delta and Gulf Coast. Because to me, just like we were saying, it's like the difference between Gregorian chants down to drum and fife music is like the Venn diagram on that is almost a regular circle. And then so this idea where this music tends to cross over is in church, which is like what I wanted to do anyway. So it seemed kind of obvious, kind of blend like a Rock of Ages kind of thing. So we did the record in two different studios. Oh. The essence of it is in just south of Oxford at it.Matt studio, Dialback Sound in Water Valley. That's where the bulk of the record was made. And then we finished it up here in Western North Carolina, in Asheville, at another church at Echo Mountain. We had Zandy play from Wednesday, and MJ Linderman, and he's an incredibly talented guy. He plays pedal steel on that. Oh. And Jason Krekel plays fiddle, and that was all done here. So there was I had not exactly abandoned the idea of literally mixing Appalachia and the Delta, but to me that was in the back of the mind. And it's ironic that in the end that is what ended up happening. Yeah. Using musicians from both mine and Matt's immediate lives. It's not like we called in people far and wide. These are people we just play with.
So we took Morgan's overdubs from Echo Mountain and then took everything back to Dialback and re-recorded everything together. So. We let those overdubs kind of play in the same room as the original tracks. So they got all kind of glued together. That's how you kind of preserve that live band performance, even with overdubs,
Okay, because it does. I mean, it sounds like it's recorded live. It's really beautiful recording.
We can't forget the other instrument is the room itself. Like where Dialback Sound is, it's pretty unique. I mean, every room is literally, but it's you get a great sound in there. It's the main instrument in the room. So no matter what we do, we had some pretty cool ways of recording, and it's like great musicians and everything. But it's the few small rooms of it's an old parsonage to a church that is still working there.
Oh, wow, okay.
So oddly, the entire thing was also done at churches.
Man,
But yeah, it sounds good because dialback sounds good, really, and we're all right.
Yeah, you guys are pretty good. That makes total sense, though. And Morgan, your performance on this is amazing. I mean, the passion that you're performing with, I honestly, I don't know that I've and I love your music, but I think this is the most passionate I've heard you singing. Songs like Tramp on the Street and Long Ago, Far Away.
A man, he did it long ago, hung him on a cross long ago, far away. Things like that don't happen nowadays. Chains of slaves drag you around, heads and heart hung low. That was during Lincoln's time. That was long ago, long ago. Far away. Things like that don't happen nowadays.
It doesn't sound like you're being recorded, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you're just there belting it out because you love it, not because you're making a record. If that makes, I don't know if that makes sense to you. If I'm explaining,
it does. That's kind of explainable in that we had just gone on a tour. I think that was you and me, right, Matt? And we were at the tail end of that. And for one, we didn't have a lot of time. Matt's pretty busy, and I'd kind of reached capacity vocal cord wise, so I'd reached kind of a cool Rod Stewart level of delivery. But you only get one or two. It's kind of like that Twisted and Shout thing. It's like, we got one of these, you better make it work. And so it's like that's the beauty of being kind of forced into these like this restriction of just get a couple of them. So let's make it work. And if it's not exactly what you wanted to do, we got the. They
don't make a plug-in for that, they make a plug-in. They make a plug-in for your vocals to sound too perfect,
Yep.
But they don't make a plug-in to have too perfect vocals sound roughed up,
Right.
Yeah.
We have to still do that manually,
There you go. Or who knows?
Yeah, we have to. We still have to smoke all the cigarettes and drink all the liquor and blow our voices out,
That's
the Steve Marriott going.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think is really cool is that this album really rocks. I mean, it's very awesome, but you end it really sweetly with a beautifully gentle version of Thy Burdens Are Greater Than Mine. And I think that you couldn't have ended it more perfect with that song, that take. It's beautiful.
Traveling down life's lonely highway, I knew not where the road would end. Not a penny in my pocket, all alone without.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Yeah, that's a phrase. We find ourselves. I don't know. I mean, most people do saying these things almost as like that kind of get you through the day sometimes. Just like if something small is like a a road rage incident or someone's being just a jerk, you just like stop it before you get too mad at them. It's just like, you know what, my burdens are greater than mine. I can't tell you how many times I've kind of talked myself down through like being
probably
mad at
every time
somebody.
you and I talk.
I give you a wife birthday.
My favorite part of making the record is sequencing the record, you know. So when I was kind of tooling around, coming up with my sequence of the record that I was hearing, you know, I noticed that was the one that would kind of get me emotional, you know, when I would listen to it. You know, so it was important to me to find the right place for that one. You know, in the streaming era, when people's attention spans are not what they are, we've gotten into this habit of like, you put a record out and you put what you think are going to be the most impactful ones all up to in front. So everybody's going to hear, you know, them before they click to the next record or whatever.
Exactly. But
I've just never really learned to experience a record that way. You know, I still listen to records as a whole.
Thank you.
Of art, you know.
Thank you.
So it's just like, you know, it's just that song is worth waiting for, you know, and it's just like, if you're burying songs at the end of the record because you don't think they're as strong as other ones, then they don't need to be on the record, is kind of my opinion, you know?
Exactly.
So it's 10 strong songs and then this sort of bow at the end that's a sparse, take it or leave it number, you know, that kind of puts everything out there out front, you know?
Yeah. And you mentioned something that I think is a lost art is sequencing. And with everything streaming now, everything's singles. Even, you know, with CDs, but even more so with LPs. Like whenever, you know, way before CDs, when you had two sides of either a record or a cassette, sequencing was an art form. And I think we started to, I don't know if maybe we started to, it shifted with CDs because everything was on one side. But with streaming, it's gone. We've lost it. And I'm glad that there are people out there making amazing music that still like that art form.
I think we were always aware that, like, you know, asking a large percent of the population to listen to an entire album was a big ask, you know, because we've always released singles. You know, it's like, if you're not going to listen to the whole record, at least take away this single, you know.
Yeah.
You know, we had 45s, we had singles, we had 12-inch singles, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, this is an album, you know, that people made that's made to be listened to as an album. It was sequenced with, you know, someone flipping a record over in mind.
Yeah.
You know, so what comes at the top of side twos is important as what comes at every move is important, you know, and was made for a reason.
Well, the care that you guys have put into this is evident. And I'm curious to know if there was, I know everything takes time and you know, not everything is easy. Was there a track that was more difficult to get to your realization than the rest? And the flip side, was there one that came together super quickly, super easily?
Yeah, I mean, time was the factor. You know, when we were able to work, everything came together really easily. In my recollection, you know.
Yeah, as far as the stuff that we worked on the song "Dry Bones." That we just didn't have time to really flesh it out as much, as a little more experimental, but in the same vein. It just didn't make it to the record, which is part of the kind of serendipity of the whole thing of like, let's get this take so we'll have a voice. Like, okay, fine. I'm glad the song didn't make it on the record, honestly, when I look back on it. So, and it's kind of like parking on the downhill. It's something to do for, you know, volume 2.
Right. There you go. Yeah. So, all right. Morgan, you are often seen out in your native habitat, also known as the road, out on tour, sometimes on a sidewalk in Baltimore, outside of a pie shop. Are you hitting the road at all with this album? And when you do hit the road next, is the set going to be mostly songs from this album, or is it going to be a mix of this and your older material?
We did. We've been out for a lot of the month. I just got back a couple of days ago. The day the record came out was our party for that was at the Tupelo, Mississippi Elvis Presley Festival we headlined.
Oh, nice!
Which is pretty fantastic, and we played the entire gospel record beginning to end. People liked it pretty good. And then ending that week with the Dexter Romweather Festival in Chapel Hill, which to me just seems like really pretty cinematic. Those two characters wrap up a lot of how I feel about rock and roll. So like day 7 came at the Dexter Romweather Festival where I got to hang out with Lenny Kaye and a bunch of stuff. And we're touring a bunch in July. I'm going out West Coast for a few shows, mostly in the Northwest. Okay. Gonna stick around the Deep South and Mid Atlantic. Mainly SEC.
You're not coming to ACC country?
Hell no.
Good.
No, we can't stay away from Chapel Hill, of course, and then Athens, Birmingham, Memphis, Oxford, New Orleans, Mobile, that mess down there. I guess then as much as possible going to Nashville in September. It's like we're all doing this ourselves. So like Matt helps me book, and we record this ourselves. We're pulling in tons of favors and just doing it from grit. Wow. So if anybody wants a house show, let me know.
That is awesome. And I mean, I have witnessed you do this through grit, seeing you at Mum's and at the pie shop. And so I'm excited to get you back up to my neck of the woods, up in the DC area. So what's the best way for people to get the album, to listen to it, enjoy it the way I've been able to?
Bandcamp.
Nice.
100%. Yeah. Go to Bandcamp and get it. You can get the vinyl. There's no compact disc, but you can download it digitally. The vinyl is beautiful. If I could just say a quick thing about the packaging.
Say whatever you want, man.
Well, we were talking about the sequencing is like, the creative process doesn't stop when the red light goes off. It's just like the sequencing is also a huge part of it, but the packaging of this thing is just out of this world gorgeous, and it's one of those records that the art matches the music. It's like if you see that and that appeals to you, it's like you're probably going to like the music inside of here. And that was is Craig Gates out of Athens did the artwork for that. But Atlanta, I'm sorry, it was Athens. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he's got a thing called Southron Creative. That's SOUTHRON. Kind of a weird word. Southron Creative.
So we just Google that. Is he on social media? Because I mean, anybody and everybody that's associated with this, I want to help. People know about. On Instagram, Southron Creative, you'll find it. And Craig is the overall creative director for the label. Okay. And so he's kind of helped me. He's vastly improved the aesthetics of Dialback in the last few years we've been working together. Because I'm not a visual person at all.
Oh. He plays in Model Citizen too, right?
Yeah, he does.
Oh,
we go way back.
That's awesome. So, Matt, what do you have coming up? Is anything as far as projects or tours coming up that you want to let everybody know about?
Yeah, I've got a next release on the label. July 25th is Williamson Brothers, who I was on tour with when I met Morgan. Okay. They've got a second album coming out, and they were the rhythm section for about 10 years for Lee Baines III and the Glorifiers, if you remember them.
It sounds familiar. I'd have to look it up, but it does sound familiar.
Incredible. We're playing their record release party in Birmingham on the 15th. It's a great record.
I don't know if you remember like a New Orleans party rock band, Dash Rip Rock.
No, that one does not ring a bell.
I'm working on a record with them, and and there's really just kind of for next year. There's already so many possible releases. Like,
that's awesome.
Kind of makes my head spin. I'm kind of in the middle of a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, hey, if any of them want to do a podcast to help promote it, send them my way. I'm happy to talk to people.
All right.
Guys, I guess that's about it. We can wrap this whole thing up. I mean, I love it. Like I said, before this, I kind of steered away from gospel, but this thing...
Not a fan.
And
That's fine.
It's funny, and I want to say, because when I started researching for this and thinking about it, it's the gospel that you hear with, the big choirs and the overproduced stuff. When I started thinking about it and looking at some of these old blues compilations and realizing, they're singing old gospel songs, it didn't click with me. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I like. And
yeah, well, I guess I don't think people realize the scope of gospel's influence. They don't understand, when you're hearing instrumentation or a way of singing or even talking on a record, even if it's like rapping or hip hop or something that elicits an emotion, that's gospel, that's preaching, that's, very much from the church.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that myself. I will go to confession and say that I am completely guilty of that sin. And I will say 3 Hail Marys, and hopefully my sins will be forgiven for that. So,
and gospel and all that pulpit stuff, it's nothing if not theatrics,
Yeah, that's for sure. Gentlemen, this has been a blast. You've kind of opened my eyes a lot on gospel music. And Morgan, I think this album is just beautiful. And I want to thank you for doing it and putting it out into the world. And Matt, thank you for your touch on this, because I know it wouldn't be the same album if you weren't involved. So thank you both tremendously. I am going to be mentioning this to everybody I know, because this is one of those albums that I instantly just fell in love with. So thank you guys so much.
Nice. Thank you.
And
like and subscribe, and ye shall be saved.
Exactly. And roll tide.
He was somebody's baby. He was some